Hey everyone, I'm here with another exit interview with you all for today. But before we get started, I just want to give a quick shout out to our Survivor NCSU editors. This past episode, episode 5 of season 2, in my opinion, was one of the best episodes of both seasons. So yeah, great editing, and I think we're off to a great season so far. But now I'm here joined with someone who may not have enjoyed the episode as much as me, the sixth person voted off of Survivor NCSU season 2, Jake. Jake, how are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Awesome. 10th place yet again. Do you think
Yeah.
that's just a karmic thing or a coincidence? How are you feeling about that?
I think I'm choosing to look at it in a more positive light. Last season, first boot. This season, first juror. And then next season, I play first place.
First place, that's a good mindset to have. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to get into that. So you coming to this player as one of four returning players placed on the humanities tribe. Like, what are you feeling going into this season?
At like the very start, I was just like super stressed. My absolute biggest fear was just being the first boot again. Like it sucked the first time and it would have sucked even more the second time. So when we like got in, I was nervous for the first bit. Then we get into that first challenge and we pulled it out. I was just like this huge weight off my shoulders immediately, just knowing that at the very least, I wasn't going to be the very first one again.
I mean, yeah, you came coming to the merge, winning or losing absolutely zero immunity challenge, one of three, I believe, of the season. Ultimately, you do end up going to tribal council because of the double tribal council twist. But I kind of want to like rewind a little bit because we didn't have these exit interviews season one. You were the first person voted off the Striver NCSU season one. Uh, how do you reflect on that experience now?
Um, Looking back, I think it's kind of funny. Like when it actually happened, it was awful. It was like this is something I'd seen like flyers for around campus for I think over a year before it happened. So it was like something that was on my radar for a bit. I had like fully been looking forward to it. I had like scheduled my whole weekend around it. And then like first boot, not even there for like 2 hours probably. Um, I was just like really disappointed. But looking back, like knowing now that I've gotten to come back, having gotten so close with so many people from both season 1 and 2, like having made all the connections and friends that I've made along the way, like looking back, it's kind of funny that like I was the only one that didn't even stick around the whole weekend. Like I can look back on it and just kind of laugh about it at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, did you feel like you had anything to prove from season one, or were you going into the mindset as I was the first one out, then I'm just kind of like playing with like you were playing however you wanted to play.
No, I definitely think I had something to prove. Like just that I was capable of surviving anything. Like I that was
Hmm.
really all I mean all I wanted to do was win, obviously, but like at the very least I wanted to get in there and like show that I'm capable of playing this game to some extent. And, I survived one tribal this time that I actually went to, which is one more than I did last time. So improvement.
Hmm. So in terms of like the actual like episodes, you had a quiet pre-merge mostly because the Humanities tribe did keep on winning. But I wanted to ask, like, what relationships did you make in that original camp?
It was so hard to make relationships in that original camp. And I honestly, looking back, wish that we lost just one challenge as the original Humanities tribe, because it would have been so much easier to judge where everyone stood going into the merge. Because, like, I really feel like I don't know if I didn't do a good job or just there was never really time to make strong connections on that tribe. I mean, it's not an exaggeration when I say that I don't think once anyone went off into the woods with one or two other people. No one looked for the idol. It was kind of crazy. Like we were together around like that little uh, sewer area like the whole time. And so like the only person going into the merge that I felt like I really knew had my back, I thought, was Jacob, just because I thought that we still had a bond as the returners. That like if we got down to 7, like the Danimals would collapse on each other. Obviously, we'd have no other choice, and that we would probably be the first target. So I that was really the only connection that I felt like confident in going into the merge was Jacob. Everyone else, like I didn't really know even where anyone else stood. like looking back now, I think it's like I'm watching it. It's like, oh my god, it's so obvious that even on day one, a girls' alliance is forming. But like at the time, like we were all just hanging out together. Like I was, I feel like it was hard to get a read on what relationships were really being formed.
Yeah. If you guys did happen to go to tribal council, the like first or two rounds, like, do you think it would have been a repeat of like the merge or like what we saw in the merge where you would have been the voted out, or they would have like, or do you think you could have shaken something out?
It's hard to say because like again, like who would I have had the opportunity to align with that I didn't otherwise? Like, and that goes for everyone. It honestly kind of seems like just from what some people said in their confessionals on the show and what even I was kind of thinking, I think it might have ended up being Sean, just because he was like the more quiet one on the group. Like, I definitely think the girls plus Mark were like the more energetic people on our team. Um, and Sean just kind of fell under the radar. He was a good like he was helpful in challenges. Like that first challenge with the water bucket, he definitely helped us a lot. But socially, I think everyone was kind of in agreement that he was probably the weaker player. And so having an early tribal, like where we would have picked one person off early, like he probably would have been more ideal as opposed to merge. It's getting later into the game. Like the target's not so much as on the weak players at that point.
Mhm. So you were one of the original Daniels tribe, but I also want to talk about the swap because I think that's kind of where your game you start to become a little bit more visible this season. Um, like how how did your game change for I'm gonna say the better when you joined the swap tribe with Jameson and Caleb?
Um, it was an interesting thing to navigate because like it was very clear how much the original Vegas were playing the game harder than the original Daniels were. Like we got back to camp after winning the challenge, getting the rock draw. And like even though we weren't going to tribal, like Caleb and Jameson pulled me and were like, let's do a thing with the three of us. And that felt good because that was the first time in the game that anyone had ever pulled me aside and said, hey, let's have an alliance. Just as a result of Danimal's first day being so tightly woven, which is why when we got to that tribal as that group and Quinn was pulled by Aziza to go to exile, I was like really locked in the middle and like concerned on which way to go. Like I could have flipped on the original Danimals and joined the other two who had, I had a more locked in thing with, but that kind of came at the expense of, well, okay, if I'm the only trader on Danimals, then we go into the merge and it's five of them against me. Even if I go with all the original Vega people, it's still a 5-5 split, and I'm putting my faith in people that I haven't even met in the game. I hadn't met Aziza even at this point in the game, that they're going to be willing to risk going to rocks for me, and that just wouldn't have been a smart risk to make. Um, so as much as I would have liked to have something go with Jameson and Caleb, it just didn't work out, and I think I probably would have been picked off next either way, regardless of which way I had gone. It really like what could have saved my game there was if I had just not even considered flopping. Like if I had just tried to make Jameson and Caleb go at each other, like say we're gonna vote off one of you two, you guys convince us why it should be why it should be you over the other. That would have been my better play. Then the Nikki and Anna wouldn't have had that ammunition to turn the whole alliance against me at the merge. Um, so I wish it worked out differently. Honestly, even I kind of wish that Aziza hadn't pulled Quinn for that, because then like I could have worked with Jameson and Caleb to vote out Lindsay or Anna, whoever was left, uh, and just kind of pin it on like, oh, I had no other choice. Like I didn't turn on you; it was just how things worked out.
Mhm. Yeah, I think the relationship that you had with Jameson coming into season two is very interesting because he was one of the people in the original Zebulon tribe that voted you out, and he was arguably the person who backstabbed you the most. Was there any like bad blood with Jameson in terms of the game coming into season two, or like were you always gonna try to get one, like even the score, so to say, if you had the chance?
I was conflicted on Jameson going into this season. Like I came in and I saw him there, and like just like a big mix of emotions, because there was one side of me that was like, yes, I have to get him back. I have to even the score here. But another side of me was kind of like, if people know like the storyline that happened between us season one, they might not really suspect that we'd work together. and so that could be used to my advantage to team up with him. And especially in the situation that I was in, had I maybe saved him there, he would have definitely owed me. But I can't really blame him for spilling that I was even considering flipping that vote, because his back was against the wall. Like, I think he probably knew that like I wasn't being 100% genuine to him at that point. Like, I can't really blame him
Mhm.
for that. I tried to even do damage control because like I knew that he was going to do that. So I went to Lindsay and I was like, "Hey, just so you know, like Jameson's probably going to tell you that I said I'd vote for you, but like we all know Jameson's a snake. He's going to try and do something crazy. So you have to trust me. Like that's not true at all. Like don't worry about it." Um, and then it turned out that I Anna was the one that got more concerned, and I never like gave her that backup. And even if I did, very possible she might not have believed me. But no, there's no bad blood between me and Jameson. I think it's a funny back and forth that we have between each other at getting each other out.
Mhm. Yeah, so going into the merge, did you think the decision to kind of broadcast that you were, like, kind of close to flipping or, like, you were thinking about it, do you think that is what ultimately got your name out there, or do you think it was, like, the emergence of this Girls Alliance or a combination of both? Like, what do you think was it?
It seems like it was a combination of both. Like the Girls Alliance forming was what started putting a target on one of the four or three, because Mark had immunity, Michonne or Jacob's heads, and they were just looking at any reason that they could get to convince people to vote for one of us. And the fact that I was flipping was like, or considering flipping was the biggest reason they could get in order to convince people. And like props to them, like it worked great. Like it got even who I thought was my closest ally, Jacob, to turn on me. So I think it was a combination of both, and unfortunate how it worked out. But when you have a group that was as tight knit as the original Humanities tribe was, like even wavering, flipping, like I should have just committed one way or the other.
Yeah, I wanna ask about your relationship with Jacob as well because he was the other returning player on your original tribe, and you say you've been, like, alluding to the fact that he was your closest ally. Was there something going into the season that made him your closest ally? Was there any conversation in the game? Like, why did you feel so comfortable trusting Jacob?
Um, so when we first merged, like there's the conversation between him and I that like happened. We're sitting on the grass, like talking about like catching each other up on what happened at the swap. That was like both of us immediately did that. And I thought like to me it was just kind of like I can't remember if we had ever like really like formally said like you and me final two or anything, but it just seemed pretty clear to me that like we're both in the 7-person alliance. We're both the returners. Like if it gets down to 7, like you and me are probably going to be the biggest targets at that point. And so I really thought that he was going to have my back going forward, because I thought if one of us gets taken out, then it would be a sign to the other one that they were probably going to go. And so that was kind of like the reason I didn't even think that I was in danger at this tribal. I was so blindsided was because Jacob didn't tell me. Like there were definitely signs that Humanities was flipping on me. Like like really shortly before we left for tribal, um, I was like down by the lake with I think Aziza and Quinn. Um, and then I look up in the woods and I notice all 6 of the other animals are together. And I'm like, well, that can't be good. And so I like tried to insert myself and it kind of got disbanded and like, okay, that's a little suspicious. But Jacob was still like, no, you're good. And I really thought he would have warned me if something wasn't, because I don't know if we would have been able to pull something off. Like I've thought about it a lot. Like, would we have been able to pull something had he warned me? And like the best we could maybe do is if we go to the 3 original stem and been like, hey, they're gonna vote me off. If we can all band together right now and maybe even somehow convince Aziza to use an idol on me. If we can all band together right now, we can take 5-4 majority if we take one of them out, and then we can run the rest of this game as the Danimals returners plus the remaining Vega. That's maybe the best shot we would have had. But yeah, Jacob's confessionals irked me a little bit, like in this tribal, like nothing, or in this episode, nothing but love to Jacob outside the game, but like the fact that he was like so angry that I would even consider flipping. Like if you watch that confessional without watching the episode, you would assume that I did it, and like I didn't do it. I considered it a little bit because I felt like it might have given us a better position in the game. Um, but it is what it is. Like I can understand why he wouldn't want to go against a majority alliance like that anyway, but it was my hope that he would have had my back more than he did.
Mhm. Were you going into the merge, were you really, like, that tight? Like, were you really that loyal to the original Danimals group? Like, were you willing to go to the final 7 with all of them?
By the time we got to the merge, it was kind of like, yeah, that's probably what's going to happen. It's not really what I wanted to happen. Because again, I just felt like if we got down to 7 with the Danimals, Jacob and I would have been 6th and 7th place. And I think like as we see in this episode, the emergence of the Girls Alliance, Mark's pretty close to them. Like it seems like they might have been able to steamroll from there. Who's to say maybe we could have pulled something off, but I was not confident that I would be playing for first place if we got down to Danimals at 7. Um, so like if I had an opportunity to do something, maybe I would have, but I just don't know what my play would have been. Like the best I could have done, and like I'm not even this crafty, like so I don't know if I would have even thought of this while I was on the show. Like when the plan was
Mhm.
originally that 4-3 Aziza Quinn split, I was on the 4 on Aziza. So had I worked with the Vega 3 in order to change the vote there and go with one of them, then we could have done a crazy plurality like 4-3-3. But obviously that vote didn't even end up happening and I didn't do it. So it wouldn't have mattered anyway. But I don't really know what my angle would have even been to take down a 7-6 without me personal alliance.
I mean, yeah, the first plan we see after the immunity challenge is kind of this 4-3 vote with Aziz and Quinn and the Danimals splitting the tribe. With the split vote going off and the potential for 3 idols, like, were there any red flags going off because of that? Like, in terms of an idol might be played and, you didn't know who they were gonna be voting for?
Yeah, I think when we were having the conversations, like when the original plan was being formed, where it was all 7 of the original humanities, we did not expect that there would be an idol for each one of them available. Um, like that wasn't even on the table. So we kind of figured, okay, we'll do the split. Surely they won't play both of them, which they didn't. Like if that original plan had happened, it would have been Quinn to go. Um, but yeah, it didn't really cross our mind that something like that would happen. And honestly, I didn't even really think I would have been in too much danger in that situation because I think the three Vegas had like even told me beforehand, like, hey, we're gonna vote for Jacob. You should vote with us. Um, which obviously isn't the person that I would have wanted to see go in that situation had it been like a full idol flush like that. Um, but it wasn't really on the table that there would be 3 idols played, and I would have been fine even if there were. So
Mhm. Did you let Jacob know that his name was being thrown out there by the Vega?
I, I did not. So maybe I'm a hypocrite for saying that he should have warned me when I didn't. I didn't think it was really a possibility that both idols would be played. We didn't think that both of them had one. We assumed maybe one of we assumed that Aziza had one. Like that was like the only like for sure. Like Aziza's been to exile twice. Surely at least one of those times she got one. And so that was kind of what the bank was on.
Mhm. I mean, you were again one of 3 people to kind of stay at that, humanities tribe the entire game. You were at that camp, and, it wasn't until the merge where Caleb found the idol. Was there any idol hunting from you that you tried to attempt, or did you just kind of try to stay with the group?
I never looked for the idol beyond like, glancing around like if we were walking through the woods, like talking to someone. I never did any intentional idol hunting. Again, that first day where it was all 7 of us there the whole time, like I was certainly not going to be the first one to just run off without everybody else to look for the idol, and no one else did, so it didn't prompt me to. Um, and then the second day, the only time I really would have had time was like while the J Tribal was happening. Um, and I don't know if anyone did look then, to be totally honest. Someone probably did because we were pretty split up at that point. But then, like by the time the double tribal was announced, like I spent like that full time, going back and forth talking to people on which way that vote was going to go. So I didn't have a whole lot of time to idle hunt in a situation that wouldn't have made me like have a huge red flag on my back. But I guess I should have. So
Mhm. When at tribal council, when the votes are being read and Aziza had Peter Idol, like at what point did you kind of know that it was going to be you? Like when your name popped up first, or was it like a kind of gradual thing, or did it hit you?
um I mean, first vote being read was like very shocking to me. Like the first one for me, like I honestly probably should have clocked then that it was gonna be me, just because why would there be a single vote for me when I think like Jacob had already been read? Um, so I like the other three are clearly voting Jacob together like they told me they would. Um, and then around like probably the third, I was like, oh my God, like all of them turned on me, didn't they?
Mhm. Yeah. So I want to move into the word association game. I'm gonna give you the name of every person on the merged tribe, and then just give me the first phrase or term that pops into your head. All right. So the first name is gonna be Sean.
Quiet,
Aziza.
funny, like her some of her confessionals, especially, I made me like almost laugh out loud.
Anna.
Underestimated,
Mark.
he's very personable.
Lindsay.
Bathroom break.
Quinn.
I know other people have said it, but Pikachu,
Nikki.
super sweet.
Caleb.
Sneaky.
And Jacob.
Untrustworthy, apparently.
And trustworthy. Yeah, we'll leave it at that. Um, so how do you think do you think that you proved what you set out to prove in season two, or do you think you still have some like unfinished business that you're still itching to kind of scratch?
I like to think I still have unfinished business. Whether or not I get to play this game again is up in the air, but I mean, I feel like there's some like I look at like my actual stats. I'm like, all right, in 2 seasons, I survived one tribal. I got 10th place twice. I was the first person voted out of my original tribe both times, and like all that sucks. Like I wish none of that was the stats that I had to my name. So I would love another chance to come back and see what I'm made of for third time's the charm.
Mhm. I mean, you did make jury this time around, so that's a
Yes.
plus. Hmm. Yeah. Anything else you want to say in terms of season two and Survivor and CSU in general?
Um, I mean, just shout out to everyone involved. You said the our production and editing crew at the start, like definitely emphasizing that they're doing a fantastic job. This is such an awesome uh, little program that they run, that everyone on production's done. So shout out to everyone involved in making the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being here, Jake, and taking the time out of your
Yeah,
day.
thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks for having me.